I don't know what I think.
Good morning. Are we up? Can you hear me? Are you up?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning out there, everybody. We are November
Yeah.
7th. Welcome
Internet
to the
issues
show.
here.
This is the bottom line. We had some technical issues, so we apologize for that, but welcome. And welcome to our show this morning. How you doing, Mars?
Man, that was creepy there for a minute, dude. It's like I was playing the intro, the timer, and then everything froze. The producer, her laptop just her internet kicked her off, and I'm like, what just happened? But even with that being said, man, I want to just give a shout out to the Fairfield Marriott here in Belton, Missouri. It's a suburb of Kansas City. That's where I'm located today. I'm on doing a remote broadcast here. So I want to just thank them. But yeah, man, they kicked me off the internet for a minute. And it's like I saw the timer, it just froze, man. But I'm here.
Well,
Ready to
hey,
get
that
it on,
happens. You're
man.
on the road. You're on the road. We got it working, and it's working right. Your daughter is our producer, Bria. Welcome. Thank you for
Yeah.
being with us today and helping us out. This is going to be great to have you here this morning. How do you feel, Mars? How do you feel? Long week?
Man, you know what? It's a long week. It has been a long week, but what's amazing about this week is that I have learned over time to try to give myself balance. And when you have that balance, it's almost like you see things differently from a different
So things don't
perspective.
bother you then. Things don't bother you. You didn't get anxious then.
No, no, no.
You
What did
didn't
we
get
talk about
anxious or
last week?
concerned or
What did we
nothing.
talk about last week? You remember? And I said, nothing surprises me.
Yeah.
Are you truly surprised by this week?
No, no, no. Everything is kind of unfolding the way I thought it would. I think it's
Right.
they are taking their good old time with calling the election when,
Yeah.
I think it's over. Some other people think it's over. Um, but the mainstream media, the cable news networks have not called the election. They seem to be wanting to draw it out. I think they're drawing it out on purpose so that we watch it,
Yeah.
so they get some ratings.
Ratings, man. It's ratings.
Seriously.
All about ratings. It's all about ratings.
But no,
That's
everything this week unfolded like I thought it would. I
right.
thought that Trump would be ahead on election night. I thought that once the mail-in ballots were counted, that Biden would pull ahead. That's what happened. I did get concerned on election night. I have to admit that I was kind of bummed and concerned, looking at the margins and wondering, is it, is it going to happen for the mail-in ballots? Are the Democrats going to pull ahead? And it did. So I feel a weight, a sort of relief, and the sort of like I can breathe and I can relax now, and I got some more sleep later in the week.
I don't feel that way at all, man.
No,
Really, I
but
don't know. What I feel right now, I don't. I'm not anxious. I don't feel one way or the other, as in relief. I never feel relief in regards to who's in office
okay.
because I look at it this way: that until I see a significant change in how politics is ran in general, then I can say a relief. Oh yeah, this candidate won, and I'm happy. I can see things, getting brighter. I don't see that.
You don't see
Um,
that? You don't feel that?
no, no, no,
Okay.
because if it was that much brighter, the election would be this close.
Well, that's true. I mean, the one I do feel a sense of relief that we have potentially somebody that I believe will be stable and will be a calming influence towards the nation and more of a normalcy, more of decency. That's what I kind of longed for.
Yeah,
I do feel a sense of depression about the state of our country, though, with the state of like our division and the state of how just contentious um, things are. And it's not like I didn't know that already, but the election just brings it out.
yeah. But the thing about it is, Darren, that's the issue. You're saying about the state of our country right now, the climate in our country. That's more important than who runs the presidency. Okay, this same climate was here when you had Barack Obama. This same climate was here when it transferred to Donald Trump. And now the
Yeah,
same climate is going to be here with Biden. So the climate is here. Because think about this: Trump only exists as a president because of Barack Obama. There was a group of
yes,
people that did
yes,
not
that's
like
true.
him that much in office. And so they brought somebody in that was totally non presidential and who can speak for people who felt like they were being left out.
Yeah,
Their
I mean,
voice wasn't being heard. So this
yep,
group, so that base built. Now, when that base built up, there was more people that you didn't realize
yep,
felt the same way.
yep,
So the climate grew under Donald Trump. That
yep.
climate grew. And so now we bring Biden in thinking that, hey, this is going to settle things down.
No,
It
I
will
mean,
settle things down from a political standpoint, but it won't settle things down from the fabric of what America was made off of,
no,
which was division.
yeah, I completely agree with that 110%. That that he did speak to a section of our populace who felt left out. My sense of relief has to do with I think there's going to be people in charge who know what they're doing now more so than the former this administration. I felt a sense of unease that they are going to mess things up, and they did. I'm sorry, they
Yeah.
did. And
Well, the
so
thing
I think that we're going to have professionals in charge. I mean, I know that people, there was a movement that was anti-PC, there was anti-political establishment.
yeah,
Um, but there's a part of me that longs for that longs for somebody with experience in public service.
Right.
I know that it comes with a lot of baggage, okay,
Yeah.
but experience counts for me.
Right.
And so that's my relief. Now, I think that going forward, there's going to be a lot of issues and there's going to be a lot of problems because that following that has been built up, those people are still there.
Let me give you an example of the tension. Now, I want you to listen to this. You might have seen this comment I posted yesterday. Listen to it very careful, America, because I want to show you how the frustration seeps in with people. I put a post yesterday that said, if you are praying for an election victory and you lose, will you think that the outcome will serve as a greater purpose for God's glory? That was my post yesterday. And, the first comment I get was debate to what I said. And the first comment was, you're only saying that because you think Biden is going to win. I guarantee you would not be writing that same thing if Trump was on the edge of victory. I didn't say anything about any politician by name. The whole purpose of that comment was to show that this is bigger than who's in the office. Regardless of who's in the office, God's will is going to be done regardless. It doesn't matter. He's going to use ways and he's going to move people around. He's going to maneuver to get his glory regardless. So my thing was, I said the same thing when Obama was in office. I said it when Trump was in office. And I'm saying it again now. The whole thing is that I like to choose my candidate, who I like to win. But regardless, however that works, it's going to get resolved in the end. And the thing about it is that I use the same example with Saul, and I don't want to go into a big Bible lesson on it, but the whole thing was that the children of Israel wanted this particular king. Saul wanted this king. And
Yep.
God told Samuel, no, let's keep it the way we have it, but he gave them what they want. Now that can be for any president that we have here in this country.
Yeah.
That we the people pick, because he gave us free will to pick what we want, who we want. That doesn't mean he put that person there.
Yeah, yes, that's what I wanted to state with your comments there. I did see your post yesterday, and I did see what people said about that. Yeah, God is going to try with whoever's in office, whoever we elect, based on our free will. Who the country elects is our decision, and God's going to try to exercise God's will no matter what. Okay, so I do agree with that. Do I agree that God put somebody in office? No, not necessarily. No,
I don't agree with that either. I mean, if it was, it would be revealed. He revealed everything.
Yeah.
So, and also with that being said, because I heard that a lot during the 2016 election, that God put Trump in office, and I'm like, that doesn't even sound right. Then you have Paula. Did you see Paula White's video of her praying? What was this thing about angels
I saw
from
that
Africa?
this week.
What's the angels from Africa thing about?
I have no idea. It's like she pulled that out of nothing. I don't understand where that came from at all. Africa. I don't get
Out
that.
of Africa. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. It could be angels from anywhere. Angels from Asia, angels from
but angels don't come from a country. Angels are an angelic being. They're
I don't know.
spirit form.
I don't know.
So that shows me a lot of what do you call it? Misinterpretation of the word.
I mean, it sounds like she just got caught up in saying whatever came to her head, I think.
So anyway, so these type of things that come into play makes me doubt when someone mentions what God did in regards to politics.
Yes.
Because
it's
remember,
very problematic when you sort of equate God's will to an election, I think.
Right.
I wonder,
we don't really know, and you would see him being glorified in that.
yeah.
And I don't see that. So yeah, man. So that's what
So I wanted to get to
ahead.
George. George made a comment, and good morning, George. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Mars. That Pennsylvania Republican legislature set up the scenario that we are currently living in. So yeah, that's a comment that people had, that Republican legislatures
Hold on, where were you? What
in
happened?
these states and on that they did not allow them to count the ballots early. So this is
Right.
why we are counting them late. So
Yeah.
that's completely true. And this year is so bizarre and so different. We're just going to have to roll with the punches and be patient. People are like, well, yes, in 2020 we ought to be able to count the votes better. We ought to be able to have a better system. But when you have people mailing in paper ballots where signatures have to be checked and they have to be scanned,
Yeah.
then yeah, things are going to take time. And
Yeah.
these states are not used to all of these hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. They're not used to all that stuff. These are volunteers that come in and do this, that count the ballots. These aren't. I mean,
Right.
they might get paid
Right.
a little. They get paid a little bit. I think poll workers do, at least in some states. I know in Ohio they do get paid a
Right.
little bit, but it's not. It's basically like a volunteer thing. You come in a few days out of your life that you commit to working the polls, and that's what it is. So we just need to be patient. I trust the system. I don't think that the people are manufacturing ballots. I don't think that people are bringing in ballots from some sort of mysterious means. I just think that that's just a conspiracy theory. I just can't believe that.
Well, they have investigators that handle election fraud. The
Hmm.
percentage of election fraud is very low, regardless of what people say. It's been proven. Now, they had made a point about the laws that are put in place for elections. Um, these are states' rights laws. Now, the Republican
Yes,
Party has
yes,
always
thank
been
you.
a party want state rights. So right
Yes,
now, what you see across the country is in each individual state having their right to create laws that we have to stand
yes,
by in that state.
yes,
Now,
yes, thank you.
I don't particularly care for state's law for everything. Now, if we had a federal law, a
Interesting.
universal law for voting, where every state voted the same way, we wouldn't have this issue. So
No,
that's
we
our
wouldn't. We
argument back
wouldn't.
and forth. You got to realize people want states law because it allow that state to maneuver to benefit pockets of people. And I wrote something
Yeah,
on this yesterday, and I ended up deleting it down because I didn't want to get into a big debate about it. But that's where it started. If you think about how long these laws have been in place, how far back they go, these laws that we have like this have always benefited the rich and powerful. It
mm,
always has. But
yeah,
what you saw this year, what you saw this year were disenfranchised people pushing the needle. Georgia hasn't won the Democratic Party as a whole in what was it, 26 years, 20 something
since
years?
Bill Clinton, since Bill Clinton.
Okay. Well, you look at the cities that move that needle. Look at the cities that move that needle
Atlanta,
in
Savannah,
Pennsylvania.
yeah,
So when you look at all that, you brought people out of the woodwork. Now, what happens when you do this now, there's going to be laws that try to stop that again. Regardless of who's in power, it could be Democratic power, it could be Republican power, but these laws are put in place.
yeah.
Secondly,
I
secondly, you mentioned fraud. You mentioned voter fraud. Well, right here in Texas, well, I'm not in Texas now, I'm in Kansas City, but in Texas, Mexia, Texas, Kelly Reagan Bruner, a social worker at the Mexia State Supported Living Center, has been charged with 134 counts in an
yeah,
election fraud investigation involving the registration of 67 of the facility's residents. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced it in the press release late Friday. So you have 67 residents living in a nursing home, and she goes and have ballots mailed in their name. Now it doesn't say who she was going to, who she was, wanted to see elected, or who she was affiliated with party wise. But it does say that Mexia, Texas, is 75% Trump supporters.
yeah.
Now, That's why I'm not going to say she did anything. I mean, I'm not going to say she was pulling for one candidate over the other. I don't know. But the whole point is the authorities caught it before it went into effect.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whose party she was pulling for. She was caught.
I think that,
That's the main thing.
there might be a few more instances of voter fraud or attempted voter fraud. The ones that you hear about are the ones that get caught. So I think that the system, by and large, 99.9% of the time works, and we can trust it. Going back to the states' rights issue, I always make the point to, as a counterpoint to Republicans who talk about states' rights and individual rights and this and that, that they claim to like states' rights, but in certain instances, sometimes they don't seem to like states' rights, and then they want to seem to do things differently. Well, I think that it's important that the states establish their own voting laws and that counties are the ones that are doing it. I think that's important. I think that's a good thing. Local control over jurisdictions and towns and cities, going back to like Confederate monuments, and if the town wants to take it down, then the town should take it down. If the town wants to do voting a certain way, then that's the way it should happen. I think local control is very important in this country, and I'm actually in favor, in a lot of instances, of local states' rights. So
Okay,
we have some guests that are getting ready to come on here this morning, and we thank them for being here. LaMarr, who's our guests?
Okay, we have Bryan. We got his middle name in there too, Bryan F. Heath. Bryan is in a position right now running for a seat of Anna, Texas, one of the city council seats. Bryan has been someone who I've noticed recently has been following me on social media, and I followed him as well. And we never met, didn't have any idea. I don't know anything about Bryan, but what I saw was that someone who engaged with my post on social media. And as you all know, in the past, I've always said this, that I try to diversify my circle of peers, that people that I communicate with, because I want to learn more about different people. So anyway, that's how I met Bryan online, and I invited him on the show. I didn't even connect this was the same Bryan until about a week ago, that he was the one that I actually voted for in the election, And so
I'm sure he appreciates your vote.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, I thought I'd bring him up, and then we have Kraig Hodge. If I say Kraig Hodge, why did I say that? Kraig Brock. Kraig Brock is a friend of mine I met through the educational system. He came to a program that I was in, and it was like really a partnership with Cleveland Public Schools and a program that I was with called New Bridge in Cleveland. He's a passionate musician. And, I just thought I'd bring him on also because he talks a lot about politics, and I can see Kraig being someone who can eventually go into politics. I can see that. He never said it, but I can just see it in him because he has the demeanor first. And I just think he would be an excellent person that would represent the city. And he talked earlier today about his passion for relationships. So I think that's a major thing when it comes down to being in politics is a relationship. So I want to bring them up on the screen now. Let me see. I'm waiting for Kraig to get on there. Hey, Bryan, how you doing?
Good morning, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
Bryan, tell us where you are.
I am in Strawberry Fields in Central Park in Manhattan.
That's New York City, yes.
Yep,
you are city council, running for city council in Anna, Texas. So
yes,
we are very diverse here. We got Kansas City represented, we have Ohio represented, and we have New York City in the background. So this is exciting.
I got a little note for you about Central Park. Have you ever heard of Seneca Village?
I've seen signs for it.
Seneca Village was Central Park. So Central Park was a community of this was after Civil War, so it was African Americans who started building communities and businesses in Seneca Village. And then there was a group of Irish residents that ended up moving in Seneca Village, and they shared this community. And it was a big community. And then what happened was that the city decided to tear down Seneca Village and build Central Park.
Wow.
Yeah, look it up.
Actually,
Yeah, so that's on my list. I had a list of cities that were basically taken apart because there was this conversation about, you hear the phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do it for yourself. And so there were like several cities that did that and they were destroyed. And this was a shared community with African Americans and Irish communities. And they came together and they had businesses there, they lived together, things were fine, and then it was torn apart. But there's a big story about that with Seneca Park, though. It's really interesting. So thought I'd throw that out there.
yeah, I love it. I'm gonna learn more about that while I'm here.
Mars has all these little tidbits of information, so that's good stuff.
So here's Kraig. Ready to bring Kraig up on the screen. How you doing, my man? How you feeling? Your mic is muted.
Okay, there we go. Good morning. How's everyone doing?
Good morning, Kraig. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome from Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you all for having me. I'm glad to be here. Very honored. Thank you all for having me.
Okay. We had this banner up saying, like I said, it's Bryan up. We're trying to bring that down right quick. Yeah, we're having some internet glitches over here, man. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's glitching. But
hey, it's okay. We're up.
Yeah,
Kraig.
we got this. Kraig, tell me a little bit about, let the people know a little bit about you as a musician, because you're a passionate musician, as well as being an educator in the Cleveland School District.
Well, I'm a licensed music educator in the state of Ohio. I've been teaching for almost 10 years. As a byproduct of being a music educator, I'm also a music entrepreneur. Music is pretty much my base, and everything that I do professionally comes through that music education and entrepreneurship standpoint. And of course, you can't really talk about music without talking about history, science, vibration, and all those other principles. Right. So it's really a way to unite the curriculum through one subject, as opposed to making 5 trips to get to one place. You're kind of really right. Getting maximum.
I'm glad you mentioned that about music, and that's so true about music. The music intersects so many different other things, like you said, history and culture. So yeah, I like that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, like I say, been a lifelong musician. I actually play every instrument and teach every instrument. My specialty is percussion and world music, and my second will be brass, and just the basics on strings and woodwinds. And what I do is I want to change the perception of music education. And what we mean by that is music is just not music for music's sake. Of course, we've heard of the doctrine of ethos, where music can be influenced to divine good thoughts, good or evil, based on the characteristics of the listener. Yeah. If you're naturally a good person, it's going to amplify those good things. But if you got some vices, it's going to amplify those as well. So we got to get back to the actual metaphysics of what music and energy and what sound is. So that's what I want to do. Let people know that we want to put some instruments in these kids' hands and take the guns out. We also want to take back control of our streaming platforms, which is part of the reason why we have such subversion and dissension within our country. So,
good, thank you.
That up there. Think about what you mentioned about that, Kraig, was really cool about the how music affects us. I don't know if you remember this, but during our during the training that we had back many years ago, when I met you, one of the exercises that I did was I had music playing, and people had to write what they felt, what they thought, what they saw with the music. And it was just instrumentals. And it's amazing how music triggers your mind and emotions to see, feel, and think different things. It's awesome. And I think that does go a long way in education, because any type of art will stimulate a certain part of your mind, your brain. So I agree with that. You in the arts at all, Bryan?
Yes, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that he was a musician that turned into a politician, because that's how I met my wife. I was starting a band and she was a drummer, and I asked her to be in my band and she said no. And for about 3 months, and then she finally played drums for me, and so that kind of became our date night. At least once a month, we'd go play a show in Dallas, and 11 years later, we still do it occasionally, but it naturally progressed from that. I've always been interested in history and politics, but music is always going to be my first love.
Oh, okay, awesome, man.
Anything with strings, really.
Yeah, that's good because Darren's a musician. I'm a producer, and I ran like several studios in Cleveland. I taught music production for 6 years to high school students. So yeah, man, that's pretty cool that there's that connection there. So we definitely got to keep in touch with that. So we're going to go into some of our conversation post-election. If you don't mind me moving forward, Darren, with the election, you cool with that?
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm just fixing some of my issues here.
And the thing about it is not even post yet. We're still in the midst of it. I know that Bryan is a Democrat. I know Kraig is a Republican.
Wait, no, I'm not a Republican. I'm actually
okay.
And I'm not 100% a Democrat either.
Okay, so
I've been called a Democrat a lot more than
let me clarify
it's
that.
2020, LaMarr.
Let me clarify this. I'm gonna bring this in the right way. Because I'm going by what I see. Remember that we got to go by what we see. So that's why I said that, and I followed the conversation. I'm not totally Democrat either. I voted on both sides of the aisle. So that's why I'm saying, because people see me now and they say, "Oh, you're radical left." I'm like, I'm not radical anything. I'm the most conservative person you can probably imagine. But I do have to put in some spontaneous stuff every now and then. But so that's why I said that, so that you can clarify who you are and what you are. So that's why I've introduced it the way I am, because I'm going to say this is what I've seen and I've communicated through social media. Who want to go first with that?
I'll take it. Eat off of Kraig for a minute. And actually, what I like to operate based off of the assumption is every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle.
Right.
We need to concentrate on the things that are the most important to us. For me, it's our jobs and our family and the survival of democracy in the United States of America. We need to concentrate on the important things. Look, a Republican stresses over paying their bills just the same as a Democrat does. We all have the same priorities, just different views. And my advice is to start focusing on what really matters to you. I feel sorry for anyone who considers the presidential election to be the most important thing in their life. There's no political view that we should take or lose life over.
That is so good. I like that so much. What is your platforms? What are you concerned about? What are the things that you believe is important right now?
Well, right now, locally, they're wanting to build. They're about to pass. They're about to propose an $80 million bond election, which is great. It'll get a library built. It'll get our community sports center built, and there's a couple different options for the public to choose from. But the problem with that is, you can build a $17 million library or however much, but it still costs $1 million a year to operate it. So how are we going to keep these things? We can build it, but most importantly, only 29% of the projects in Anna are on time or complete to begin with. So they need somebody with project experience to kind of help guide it. I mean, a city council member can with their influence. And what they need is somebody who can help increase their commercial tax base. They need proactive city council members who will help market the city, give it a good image. Because I mean, if you want to build in a city and you look them up on Facebook and you see all their city council members trolling people online, you're not going to want to build there.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Ultra partisan, and I'm all business in the end.
Right.
I'll work with Republicans. I'll work with anyone if it'll get a library built and operating.
That is great. I mean, that is great. I like to remind people that, the presidential election kind of overshadows almost everything else that's going on. We're not even hearing about what's going on in our Senate races and what went on in the congressional races. I mean, what affects people's lives most of all is not the president. It's going to be your local city council members. It's going to be your school board members. It's going to be your state representatives and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm glad you are talking about local issues.
Yeah.
So what was your position? I'm sorry, I was going to say, Kraig, your position on when I mentioned the Republican, you said, "Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead and I know that Bryan is taking his a little bit. Let's go ahead and state your position in politics right now."
Okay, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I was born into Democratic family, democracy. We will vote blue across the ballot, no matter pretty much what, to an extent. And like I say, I'm in my mid-30s now at this point, but we came with the understanding that that was going to be in our best interest, regardless of what anyone else told us. And of course, we know that things change once we get a little older, which has brought me to a non-biased opinion, because as I said, it's almost epigenetical. It's like you're supposed to do this. It's almost in your genes. You're not supposed to go against the grain or anything, because now we tie it to religion, because we come from a Christian home where now we believe in that democracy and that's whole, idea of culture. It's a complete idea of culture, because politics, religion, diet, all those are aspects of culture. So, and you could be right. I have been paying a little bit more attention to policies and things like that. So I have been looking at it from a non-biased approach, and I do find myself being kind of a little bit more liberal when I was younger, and maybe now kind of coming back to the conservative side, what I think a lot of people do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you both would consider yourselves more like independents then, maybe, or
In Texas, that's really your only option if you get something done.
okay, interesting.
Kraig made a good point about coming in, like when he turned in and got into his 30s, his mindset became more conservative. When I voted Republican, I was in my 30s, and I'm not saying, I think my situation was more influenced by church at that time. That was the George Bush Kerry election, and so I went with George Bush in that situation. But then I've changed back and forth. So yeah, I go by what's of your best interest at that moment, and I think that's what we got to move on. And everyone's interest is different, and that's why I feel that conversations will help understand that. You don't have to agree, but I can say, wow, I understand where Bryan's coming from now, because I didn't know that about Bryan until he just mentioned what he said. I'm like, wow, because I'm looking at stuff on the internet. I'm like, wow. I didn't expect that from a Texas person,
To get maximum benefits, to get maximum results from your power of your vote, you may have to sway between the sides, because that's what the candidates are going to do.
Exactly.
For example, some candidates may want to run independent, but they know they don't have a shot. So they have to be in Republican, because they know it's going to be the best interest of their overall chance to win. So,
and a lot of it has to do with money, of course. So,
doesn't it all have to do with money?
well, I mean, as far as like trying to campaign, it costs a lot of money. So, if you're attached to a party, then that's going to help a lot.
Right. Interesting. Like that money.
Go ahead, Bryan. I think you're going to say something there.
Check out this question here, because we've seen it. We've seen this now, right? And we've seen this in action. Go ahead. Who wants to go first on this?
Kraig, if you want to take it. I went first last time.
I'm here. It's fine.
Can you see the question?
Okay. Oh, there it is. Hey, look, I'm looking at
the question at the bottom of the screen there. There you go.
Well, how has it influenced? Well, actually, I mean, it really hasn't, because I've always had my political views really, even before social media was here. Now, someone that was born into the social media age, I'm a little, more reluctant to say that they can't answer it that way, because, all they know is social media. I remember going to have to get books and research and look things up, go to the library, have an Encyclopedia Britannica where it would give you actually all the presidents and things that were going down. So my mind was kind of already in the mind frame of a researcher and just being an independent thinker, because like I said, even coming from a very, very heavy Christian home, I had to be a heavy thinker if you wanted to kind of be able to grow to a certain extent and be balanced. No one way is not good. So social media has not actually influenced my political views. If anything, it's let me know where other people stand and where they think, which is also a good thing. It's got to be a two-way street. You got to be able to gauge yourself and where others are. But I'll also say that, in my opinion, and some people may not agree with me, essentially Facebook and social media is really socialism. It's social media. It's social. It's socialism. And it's not really, a democracy. Yes, you can have your point of view on there, but why do we have fact checkers? Why are things getting taken down and other things are not? I'm entitled to my own opinion regardless of your feelings.
Okay, what about this? I'm going to challenge you on that, Kraig. You have your own opinion, but why, when it's challenged, people get upset? When it's challenged with truth. With truth. Now, think about it is that if you come out with something as an opinion because you feel that way, okay, I'll give you an example. People have been saying that this past election, there was fraud. I'm not disputing there was fraud or not. My thing is that you say there's fraud and you give an example of the fraud, but you're not giving me any proof that it exists. So I challenge you and say, well, and one of the arguments was that the people who were supposed to be poll watchers weren't allowed to get but so close to the county as their county. Well, the regulation shows 15 feet. That's fact. That's factual. 15 feet or farther. You can't be closer than 15 feet. That's the rule. So if a person says, I can't get close, they're not giving you any context there. How close are you? Do you want to get 2 feet, 3 feet? Now we're in the midst of COVID also. So there's regulations there. So put things in context. And if I challenge you on that, don't just say, well, it's fraud, and then people get mad when you're challenged. So it can be any topic of opinion.
Well, it kind of
but if somebody challenge you with that,
a little bit, you're kind of leaving this point just a little bit. You're going into another point.
Yeah, we kind of are. We kind of are.
Okay, no. When I said no, we're talking about political views because on politics, on this social media, we see this in social media,
which would be different than how can the election be improved or this or that or the election process.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with that. But I'm saying, but on social media, we can put a post out there. And what happens is we have this thing called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias means you will gear in your mind to communicate with those who believe like you. So you put a post out that's not factual because you'll put opinion out rather, as an opinion, but then no facts behind it, and that gets shared around. What happens is that you get
the first part of your question. Let's break it down because you're getting into a round. But to answer the first part of your question, okay. People get upset because they're not able to separate the emotion first. If someone says something, just let it be said as opposed to reacting to everything. Stop being reactionary. Process before you react. Okay.
I think social media has become a very reactive sort of thing. Like we see something, we get incensed or enraged even about it, and we kind of have to challenge everything, and we start arguments, and we start blocking each other and stuff. I mean, I think for me, social media hasn't necessarily influenced my political views. I think it's sort of amplified those views because of all this sort of noise that we see, and the majority, because we all sort of have our confirmation biases, and we build up our friends list that sort of that we agree with, that are in our same position, and so we have a bit of an echo chamber. So it's sort of amplified my views. What do you think, Bryan?
Across the board, though, you think that's across the board that I agree with what you just said about you. I don't think everyone chooses friends based on their beliefs.
Right. No, I don't choose friends.
I think they comment, and their thoughts and their beliefs build around the confirmation bias.
Yes.
You can have several friends, but what happens is that Darren can say something that I agree with, Kraig can say something I don't agree with. I will debate with Kraig and agree along with Darren. That's how you build your confirmation bias up over time through social media. And I've seen that. And if you, like I said, that's why I always say let's have a conversation more so than a debate, because I want to see. I will challenge you, and Darren is saying that's wrong sometimes. The challenge like that, the way you're putting it toward me, because I challenge because it's hard for me personally to hear someone say something without fact or a non-truth,
I do that too. If I see something that I either disagree with or I believe is false, I feel like I have to say something. And a lot of times I need to just let it go. And like Craig says, just let them have their say
Yeah,
and then keep scrolling down. I
yeah,
think that the other thing about social media is that this sort of like if you put something up and you get a lot of likes, then you're thinking to yourself, well, that must be true because I got like 12 different likes within 5 minutes, and people must agree with me. It must be true. And
yeah.
that's not necessarily the case. You just might have people that agree with you. That doesn't make it true.
You're right, Darren.
I know me
What you think,
personally.
Brian?
I've had I have people on my friends list, and someone said it. I don't know how we became friends. You know what I mean? I think
I
that's
know
one of the beautiful
there's a lot of
things
people like that. I have, yeah.
Long as they're not someone that's going to be compromising to your safety, if they're a real person, that's kind of the beauty of it, you know.
Yeah.
I had a
looking at
troll.
my friends list, you'd have a hard time judging just solely based on my friends list. You'd have a real hard time judging where I stand. I have
Right.
love all the different opinions and points of view, and I'm definitely not above changing them if presented with something that's proven to be a fact.
Yeah,
That's
I
good. That's
agree.
good as you said that. Yeah.
I had a troll once,
respect
man. I
that.
had a troll. This troll, he kept bothering me, man. He comes on like every election season, and he kept bugging me. He'd just say stuff just out of the blue, just to get
Yeah.
a stir up, you know.
Yep. I
I
mean,
even
don't we
call
all
his
have
name
those?
out.
We all have those.
His
Yeah.
name is Bill Lee. I'm throwing him out there, okay? He bugged the heck out of me. But you know,
Hey,
so
Bill,
one
if
day,
you're out there, you're being called out.
yeah. So what? So
Get the
it was
link,
this
Bill.
year. It was earlier this year, man. Have you ever seen him, Craig?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, it was like earlier this year, Bill Lee said something, and I said, "Hey, does anybody know this dude? Is this a troll? He's like, he got to be a bot or something that comes out of the blue." And finally, friends of mine told me, "Yes, Bill Lee is a real guy. He's a real nice guy. He's just a little
Usually
odd."
they are.
Yeah, but
I've met some real nice people. Yeah. Well, and then
yeah,
you kind of see that they know someone that you know physically, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know
exactly.
that person." They're a friend of a friend, usually, which is kind of like what we really want social media to be about.
Yeah, I was going to delete him until some good friends of mine said they knew this guy. I was going to delete him because it was getting to the point he was arguing with the other people in my post. And if you ever see me do this, if I see people disrespecting each other, I would jump in and say, hey, let's be respectful. We're not going to have name calling because I have to respect everyone's opinion that comes on my page, everyone's comment. You will never see me delete someone because of their comment unless it's laced with profanity or blatantly disrespectful to somebody.
Yeah.
Then I'll delete it.
Here's a question.
But I'll just let everyone have their say. But any more comments on the social media?
Actually, to answer your question, I mean, I think this would be Craig made a good point because this would be a great question. I'd like to ask the 12 to 25-year-olds this question. I think it would be much different than two guys in their mid-30s like me and Craig because we remember the world before social media took over.
Right.
Form our opinions before Facebook existed because I was very much into history and politics before Facebook. I got into it when I was 12 living in Dallas. We got into Kennedy and it made me more prescient to the fact that mainly extremists post the most political oriented content on social media. The loudest voices are the ones that seem to be heard the most, especially on social media. I'm all the voices in my community instead of just serving the loudest ones. And that takes work. You got to seek those voices out. There are many voices heard, not just the loudest.
Right. That's very good. That's very good stuff. Very good points. Yeah.
Good.
Well, you also have to look at the time that it comes in because if we're going to be on, like you say, you want to know where the facts are for certain things. If you're not able to, as you say, if it's something that's happening right then, of course, you need time lag. Just like when 9/11 happened, we didn't know because we didn't have social media. I couldn't call or show someone this or videotape this or that. So the invention of the cell phone alone has made us have to do a paradigm shift, and people don't like the paradigm shift because now things are in their reality that was not there before. And like you say, I've heard people say, how do you think outside of the box when it's not there? Well, the box is there. And as you say, you have to put different things in there, continue to sharpen your saw, continue to be comfortable with being uncomfortable at times, and just growing and expanding. And, some things can't be confirmed through facts because they're simply almost intelligence. If I'm using my reasoning ability and I'm inferring a situation and I already have, 10 years of experience, I can say, yes, this is true. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can prove it. And I can show you, this is why. And I can pr dots that have been connected or a certain batch of knowledge, you're not really going to be able to express that to someone else that doesn't have the bank of knowledge that you have based on your experiences and your inferences and observations. Because anyone that can do math or is a mathematician can look at a lot of the stats that were coming up in the election night and saying, hey, after Trump won Ohio, some things really, really started to spin a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, something that was really odd, Kraig, you mentioned earlier about how about opinion. You know, Facebook will take down your opinion or block your opinion because they're fact checking things that you're saying. Do you think that they did that before the government started regulating to where they would be checking it? The government would take things down? Do you think Facebook jumped in before that can happen?
Well, I mean, that's part of what House Bill 230 is about. I mean, they were just in court. They've been in court all year.
Okay.
Because this trend is nothing new with the media, okay? If you look at all of the riots that happened in the 1920s, whether it be Rosewood, whether it be Tulsa, whether it be Wilmington, North Carolina, of course, where we're looking at in question right now, still North Carolina, whether it be Detroit, Chicago, 1919, all of these riots were staged by the media coup. All right. And it was because the papers were being delivered on a daily basis, having this storyline, and no one would really know the truth. Even if you take Tulsa, for example, that was in retaliation to something that really didn't happen. You know, if two people want to get together and have an agreement, and now their disagreement is being perpetuated through the press, I mean, that's complete bias. And it's really the same thing that's happening now.
Same thing. Right.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I agree.
In Wilmington, North Carolina, where you had one of the first Black House of Representatives, because post emancipation, 1865 or this or that, the Republican Party was pretty much the party that was able to give people of color a seat at the table, essentially. So when you look at Galveston, Texas, you know, when you look at, as I said, Wilmington and these other places, they literally had to make other parties like the Fusion Party and like the Democrats to take the power away from the colored farmers. You also had Caucasian farmers that said, hey, you know, we got to be able to keep up. They're working a little bit more efficient, a little bit better because they're used to doing it to an extent. But there's just this continuous tone that no matter where we are in history, it's going to be the same components. And it's the mainstream media turning us against.
Oh, totally agree. Money and power.
Yeah. And this has been an issue going all the way back to 1800 with the Sedition Act. Even John Adams himself had a problem with this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally agree. Let's bring next up.
What about another question? How about this?
Yeah.
Did anything surprise you about this election? Was there anything this week that surprised you? Anything in this election cycle that surprised you at all?
I'll go first on this one. What surprised me, both locally and nationally, was how smooth it went. There didn't there didn't seem to be any problems of any kind. You would think with the pandemic, at least concerning Anna, that there would be long lines, but there wasn't compared to some areas. I was surprised how smoothly and quickly they counted the results in my area. We knew the results for our local elections before midnight on election day. Even nationally, the states seemed to be going smoothly. The only thing that seemed to take a long time was the count. But you can't really blame them because they want to get it right. They want to be thorough. They want to on the first time. We've learned our lesson from 2000.
There might be people that disagree with you that it went smoothly or that it's going smoothly. So.
Well, he's actually, I would agree with him because if you look at the pattern up into about, as we said, till we went to sleep to an extent, as I said, after the big shift, because if you deal with numbers and you know that if there's only 100,000 absentee ballots out, there's only 100,000 out. If my candidate is winning by 400,000 votes, I don't even have to count the absentee ballots. We know this already. I mean, it's not rocket science. As you said, what we have this year with COVID and knowing that people can walk up, vote with the mask on. People can, as we said, this was also a year for the census. So there was no reason to go out and, like you say, do just mail out ballots. Let them request the ballots as we have continued to do. Because as you said, now we have millions of mail-in ballots just sitting around. And as I said, I'm not biased because, I don't support Donald Trump or nothing like that. But the point is, I'm just looking at it from a mathematical perspective. And not only that, something that was interesting was the percentage of the precincts reporting. I've never seen a big 90% like that in my life. I've never seen 1% sit there. I've never seen 90% in it. And I mean, I just watched you count almost 200,000. You can't tell me it's not going to move at least 2 percentage points or 3 percentage points.
Right.
What do you attribute the huge turnout to? Just because it's a presidential election, or because of the candidates involved?
I mean, for me, a lot of it is the fact that we weren't able to go do much anything else. There's no concert.
Yeah.
There's not really much else to do, so let's go vote.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. That was a day out of the town for some people.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that's just right again. That's just the double standard. You can let me out of my house to go protest. You can let me out to go vote. You can let me out to do these certain things. As you said, we mandated masks. We've got the cause in place. People should definitely follow the rules. I believe in wearing masks completely. But the thing is, the things that we needed to be implemented, what else can someone else that doesn't have any seat at the table? Are we going to wait 4 more months to January 20th to say these are the new things we're going to do? Are we going to wait for more people to die because the things that are in place need to be in place? And I can understand someone's attitude. I mean, the guy is very difficult to deal with, but at the same time, he's still getting things passed on a bipartisan basis.
Okay. Here's a question. What do you think will happen now? What's the future now? What's the future the next until inauguration? What's the future after? Presumably that Biden is our next president. What does the next year look like?
No.
You asking me? Socialism. California has already proposed to be divided into 5 states, which will completely continue to lock up.
Do you really think that's going to happen? They've been talking about that for at least a decade, though.
Well, look at the fires. Look at a lot of the things that are happening out of there. California has been the spot where a lot of the legislation has come out of. That's the spot of the country where, as we say, a lot of House bills and AB bills and things like that. And even if it doesn't, I was working under every president we've had. I've been successful under every president we had. So as far as what it looks like, it doesn't change for me. I'm saying politically, it's just going to be more of a power struggle and power grab when fundamentally you need them both. It's left and right. I mean, you're supposed to have one side draw it up, side kind of cross-referencing and look at it. I mean, just like people, no one's completely left hemisphere dominated. No one's completely right. But if I have to take that analogy and apply it to facts, left hemisphere brain dominates the Western world, which is actually what we're seeing. You have people that are right hemisphere deficient based on their activities and based on their skills and based on the educational system.
Okay.
We have a test-taking liberal system where, as you say, just take the test, do this, regurgitate, cookie cutter this, as opposed to being right hemisphere dominated, where the right hemisphere allows the left to work on steroids. And we don't have enough cross-curricular brain function where they're sending messages quick enough.
So you're making the analogy between left and right brainness to our left and right political spectrum. My question and my frustration. First of all, my frustration with politics is that we don't work together enough to actually get things done. And there's so much of a divide. It's like the worst thing you can do as a politician is to work with the other side, and that should be almost number one of what you should be is what you should do as an elected official, is to go into office and to try and get things done. And that's going to have to take compromise. And we don't do enough of that. Our Congress, year after year, gets less and less things done. And that is my huge frustration. So how do you work together? How do we bridge this gap? How can we minimize our current divisions so that we get things done that's going to benefit all Americans?
I mean, that's a fantastic point, but in some ways, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We've ever since it was started, it was impossible. Like, you know, that painting of all the founding fathers getting together and signing the Declaration, that never happened.
Yeah.
It would have been a miracle to get them all together at the same time, because we've been divided like that since the very beginning. That's why it's such a monumental achievement, because they all just kind of stopped by as they were there in Philadelphia and kind of did it. But it was a long road to get there, and it's always been division.
There's not supposed to be a national strategy for COVID, George, because it's left up to the states. That's why you can see state by state what the governors are doing and what they allow the president to do, because he's on the federal level and the states have to approve, which is checks and balances, which we have in place. And obviously we need to talk about
but do we need one? Do we need one? That's his question. Do we need a national strategy so that we can get control of it?
To be fair, we kind of have one. The CDC issued guidelines, and they were considered. In a lot of places, they adhered to them strictly. A lot of places, they didn't.
Well, like you say, everyone should be wearing masks. Everyone should be 6 feet apart. Everyone, as you said, I was in Chipotle the other day, just traveling through, and you know, it was a small one. There was only one spot to sit. I mean, and I really don't like sitting down, but I was traveling and I sat down to have lunch. It was just myself and my mom, and some gentlemen, you know, they kind of just came over and they just moved the sign off the table and just sat down and started to eat.
Wow.
And we're like, you know, you are not realize that there's regulations and that. So in about less than 5 minutes, the manager did come out and say, hey guys, you know, you can't do this A, B, C, and D. But I say that to say there are things in place and people have not just shifted. They have not comprehended that it's not just about you. It's about the people that we live with. It's about the workers being able to stay healthy, the essential workers, so we can keep the economy on the last leg that it's on. Because whether we like it or not, sickness is not going to keep anyone in a house.
Right.
You know, and not only that, you're in a very feeble state. People have to eat. Poverty goes up if you keep the economy closed. Therefore, crime goes up. Mental disorders go up. Depression goes up. And of course, we're coming into, you know, the change in seasonal SIDS. I mean, these things are factual, proven things. And you cannot force a human out of a natural state. You are now making it unnatural of a habitat for a human. You do that to an animal, watch how it attacks you. Right.
You were mentioning about what happened at the table, made me bring up my next question here. What would you say to American citizens on how to move forward to minimize the current division of our country? You mentioned the mask, no mask thing. We have all kind of division in our country right now. What is your suggestion to people to move forward, to minimize what's going on now? Bryan?
Well, it's kind of like what I said earlier. Above all, focus on what's important to you. A difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We all have our jobs and family to worry about. We all have to concentrate on the important things. Republicans stress over paying bills just like Democrats do. Sorry, it's a little loud.
So if you, by you being you're running for a council seat.
Yes, sir.
What is your strategy for minimizing this type of thing that could be happening in your community? Like, how would you handle that as an elected official?
As an elected official, I would just try to do what every politician should try to do and appeal to people's better angels. And just say, you guys want a library, for example, then this is what we need to do. And sidewalks and playgrounds are not political, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
It
Right.
shouldn't be. Here's my issues. It seems that everything nowadays is political. I mean, I don't think that mask should be a political issue. I don't think that trying to save people's lives are political. This is the first time in my memory, I'm 50 years old, that I can remember like public health has become a political issue. I mean, that's frustrating to me. Why is this a political issue? I mean, why can't we agree on this?
No, I agree. You're right. What about
I agree.
Kraig?
I
As a
would
citizen.
agree with Bryan, as he said, the common struggle, you got one side that wants free stuff and you got the other side that's tired of having their free stuff stolen to an extent. You just got two sides to it, and like you say, it's able to see the common struggle. And essentially it's just like, there's different levels of division, whether you want to talk about constitutional division or black laws or how it's defined in the Constitution, or you want to talk about division financially because of the top 2% based on, the pyramid of the 98% that's on the bottom. And like I say, there's no dissenting views. That's essentially fascism. And if it wasn't, as I said, you wouldn't have, the Zuckerbergs and the Twitters in court like this, because we're trying to get you to see something. We're trying to get around the law. We're trying to get them some type of way, but they're slipping and they're just sliding and they're, because like you say, it's a process. It's almost like it's an equilibrium. It goes like this 4 or 5 times before it actually settles. And that's what we have to do within ourselves.
Here's a question. We've thrown around these terms a little bit here this morning, and we've heard a lot this year. 2 terms: fascism and socialism. Are we misusing these terms? Do we know exactly what we're talking about when we use them? And we throw them out to label people.
I do.
Okay. But is that reality of what is happening now, though?
Context is always good.
I think it's the way it's used these days, especially in modern American political discourse. It's almost seems more of a marketing tool than anything else, like just to throw a label on it. Because I've had a hard time looking up the actual definition. Like if you Google what is socialism, you're going to get a very broad definition of fascism. Because I'm like, what is the actual definition of it? I've been researching it a lot, and there's so many different kinds of examples. And that's what I like to about communism, is that it's a theory that doesn't work when you factor in people, when you factor in human emotion. Like if we were automatons or AI, then it might work a little bit better for that. But when you factor in the heart, the human heart, that's what makes it difficult for any system, any institution.
Yeah.
I have an issue with labels.
So do I.
You guys start talking about the labels, and I just had told her to just create a banner for it. I think we label too much because of how you think or what you say, there's a label placed on you. And that goes back to earlier when I labeled you guys Democrat, Republican. But even deeper than that is where you go from this conservative, liberal, left wing, right wing, radical left, radical right, all these words to bring up a point that you made, something that has your interest and your label for it. And a lot of times those labels are a mischaracterization or taken out of context of who you are. And like I said, we've all 4 of us somewhat fall in the middle as an independent. But because you may speak on one issue, when you speak on that one issue, they want to label you to something. And that is destroying, in my opinion, it destroys the communication, and it destroys you expressing a point about a social issue in our country. Whether you support a civil rights protest or you support a certain tax cut, you shouldn't be labeled because of that. You should be talking about the issue and come to a common ground with the issue.
I don't think you should be labeled, but you should have accuracy when defining terms and when you're using a certain sentence. And like you say, when people are wrong, I feel like we should be able to correct each other. But it goes back to our point, you know, ego, money, and special interest is, like you say, no matter who the politicians are, it's still going to come back to the ego, the money, and the special interest, because we know we're supposed to be working together, but my envelope's a little bigger than yours. You know what I mean? At that point. And it's just this, you completely obliterate any principles, as Bryan said at the beginning of the show. You just obliterate any principles. If you don't have any principles, now you're set up with a inverse type of evolution. For example, polarity, you have to avoid all extremes. That's a principle. You know, mentalism, those are principles. You know, vibration, those are all principles. Whereas you say they're laws. Yeah. And when you start to pick away at the natural laws that make up culture, or just of the human race, because as I said, it's a one denominator thing. The human race, it starts to affect us socially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
we're picking away at those principles that make us human.
I just wanted to take a time out and acknowledge that if you do have any questions, any comments, please feel free to comment. We do see it. We do try to show it. So George, thank you for your comments here. And if anyone is out there that has questions or wants us to address something, go ahead and please comment on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think a lot went into it. You know, hate is really, really what won this election to me personally. It was more about who was hated more and who was what who would reciprocate or receive that idea of the hate. As you said, people were a lot of times voting for the other side and really couldn't even tell you why, just because they hated the other side, you know. And I'm a person that, you know, it's almost like, you know, the person may sound harsh, but kind of really listen what they're saying to you. I guess we call it tough love in the in the old school, I guess. And you just have a lot of baby-fied mindsets. You can't even say nothing to them. They're crying and rolling on the floor just because you told them to speak up a little bit, or just because you told them to, you know, come to work on time. Or, I mean, just any simple principle or discipline is not, it's a thing of the past to an extent. You know, we've taken this idea of free will and just kind of, like you say, infringed upon other people's freedom of expression. You know, it's up to me to not, as you say, infringe on other people's rights based on how I celebrate mine.
Okay.
Do you think there's do you think there's a generational gap or a generational push toward why this happens? When you look at, especially again through social media, where thoughts and expressions are put out there, do you think there's a shift there because of generations?
Well, in marketing, they know that one of the laws of marketing is that each generation rejects the values of the previous generation, and that's a lot of marketing operates based off of that assumption.
That makes sense. That makes sense, because I look at with politics
to some degree.
When you look at the just the political realm of the age groups are there. Me myself, I want to see some of these older people gone. In my opinion, I like, you know, you want to see the stability there to teach younger people the ropes. But I feel that we do need to have a shift in the mindset as technology change, as the whole, as our world changes. I feel that you need to bring people in that will speak more to the change that is happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
More so stuck in, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I know I've done it as a teacher, where I get stuck in my mind, my way of thinking, but then I get lost on the fact that this is another mind coming in with a different set of boundaries that they've had to grow up in. And so when they express themselves, they're expressing themselves from a different place than me. That's the same thing we see in politics right now.
So Bryan, I have a question. How do you get more new faces in politics? I look around at the national landscape and the people who we see on TV in the national setting. You know, you see Donald Trump, who's 74, I think, and Biden, who's 78. You see Nancy Pelosi, who's 80 years old. How do you get some more new blood in our political system? How do we get new ideas and new people?
Your mic is off, Bryan. Can't hear you.
I apologize. In my humble opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with how ugly politics have gotten.
Oh.
We used to attract the best and brightest, and
How do we do that? How do we do that? It doesn't seem like we
Well,
have the best and brightest, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
let's be
exactly.
honest. I mean, you're the exception.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm just I try to stay humble and maintain a student mentality. But what I think is that for me personally, I was like, honestly, you want something done right, you're gonna have to do it yourself. I kind of got to the point where I was like, I'm just gonna have to try and set an example. I really in this election locally, because in the last couple of elections and even during watching the other candidates, they get kind of caught up in the ugliness of it, and it's real easy to get sucked into that. But I really wanted to set an example. If I do nothing else with this campaign, I want to set an example for future people who run, because I've inspired a couple people closer to my age to run for city council next time around. We're gonna have a lot of candidates next time around.
What first got into your mind to run for office? How did you get started with that? Or where did that?
I actually, in 5th grade in Anna Elementary.
Where did that seed get planted?
Do what? Sorry. Oh, but
where did that seed get planted for you to enter into politics, to run for office?
In 5th grade in Anna Elementary School. I've been trying to find it, but I have this paper that it's a picture of me in front of the White House, and we were supposed to make a plan. What do you want to be when you get older, and then how are you going to do that? And then little 5th grader version of me, I put myself, I painted the White House or whatever, and then I said the first thing I would do is run for Anna City Council. And then go from there, dreaming big and all that. But so this is something I've been planning on doing for about 20 some odd years.
Oh, wow. Hey, Kraig, I mentioned earlier, we were talking on the show, and I said I could see you in politics. Has that ever been a thought of yours of venturing into that area?
I have had some local council people ask me if I would consider doing politics, and I would have to say it depends, because you want to be able to make a difference, you know what I mean? And if you know that the house is burning, you don't run into the house, you wait till it burns down and then you go in the house, you know what I mean? What I mean by that is the people that you talked about, Darren, the deep state, they've been in there over 40, 50, 60 years, and that's the reason why people like myself and Bryan, really can't just run in, because it's like, okay, now I gotta go and I gotta, and not only that, if you don't listen, and I believe we should be mentored, and I know you talked about the age gap, LaMarr. There is a certain level of mentorship that should happen man to man, woman to woman, household to household, that is completely broken. But with that being said, we're able to usher in our politics and our policies that way, because it's grassroots at that point. We're growing it. It's short grass, as opposed to having this person come in from New York who no one knows to be your city council person. Now, who sent them?
Right.
And
do
they have the best interest? I've noticed. Sorry, on the Anna Council, I've noticed that there's not a single person on the Anna Council who's lived there. I think 2012 is the earliest.
And that's not good. And that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not
whether it's good or not, I definitely do not want to say, because some of these guys are great guys. They have nothing but the community's best interests at heart. But that's thing that some people think is disconcerting. We do have one council member who did go to school here in Anna, but he chose not to run again this year. I don't know why, but I really did enjoy him being on the council.
But Bryan, you want to balance, like you said, you do want to bring in some fresh ideas, people that are not from here. But where's part of the as you said, the people's piece of this? Where's the democracy in having someone else represent your voice that's not you?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's one thing I noticed, because the majority of the council maintains that they are conservative in nature, and the most recent voting trends show that Anna could be upwards of 50% conservative, 50% leaning liberal, and I would like to see all of those voices represented. And ever dream of telling any percentage of our community that no, your voice doesn't matter because you like this celebrity for president as opposed to the celebrity that I like. you know,
And that's
Either one of
pretty
us
much what
ever
it is.
met,
Yeah, celebrity contest.
and this person who has no idea who our little town in Texas is, or there, but yet we're gonna fight over that.
Yeah.
He doesn't really even know we exist.
How do we, here's a question, and George, I want to put this up here. Excuse me. So George says, are we just voting against someone? Are we just haters when it comes to our voting? How can we reverse the trend? How can we vote for something rather than against something or against a person? Like are we motivated purely by a reactionary thing? Or are we motivated by actually trying to do positive change?
Well, I mean, you have to even look at the decisions that people were making. If something is going to motivate you that changes, as you just said, Darren, look at what people left on the table. People don't even know the different policies and bills and things that are actually on the table now by the president that's actually in control, which is actually some pretty good stuff. Personally, I think, because I went on a White House website.gov and I've seen the budget for 2016, for 2017, for 2018, coming into 2019, and what that administration was planning to do. And a lot of that stuff was for those blue areas that voted in Biden. And my thing is, you're going to beg to take someone from the table that has to now work to get to the position that the person at the table is in now, which is kind of counterproductive, because you have to be selectively permeable. You ride the tide until it's time to change the boat.
Okay.
As well. And that's not even to mention and some people can call it fake or propaganda, the platinum plan for Black America and this or that. But I will tell you this, though, nothing else has been that close into the president's hand. Nothing else has been, tangible, that tangible. And as I said, you don't walk away from a deal on the table. And once again, we're dealing with a businessman and not a politician. Politicians make you feel good. Politicians know that they have to win that vote, as opposed to being, as you said, business minded. And not to say that people shouldn't have compassion, not to say that people shouldn't have these core traditional values, but all of them don't. And that doesn't make them a bad person. It just allows you to see that there are other spectrums of morality. And I'll give you a perfect example. I live in the inner city. I hear gunshots. I know that what's going on around me. But if I feel sorry for a young man that got killed because he was robbing night in and night out, that's a waste of emotion and time and energy for myself. Not to say I don't feel bad for the young man, but that's another principle. He manifested that on himself. So at the end of the day, we cannot hold ourselves to a lower standard by judging someone else's character. Let that person be an a-hole. Let that person be who they are. But at the same time, you still have to respect the figurehead position. We always get amnesia when it's time to apply what we've learned. We know the president is a figurehead position. We know that already.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why, like you said, the policies that he's trying to put in place that you say are good, could it have been because of character that the resistance was there? I've said this before, that if President Trump,
I would say yes for sure.
But President Trump, the things that he's trying to do, if he wasn't so abrasive, the way he approached certain people or things or people that challenge him, I think he would have been more successful. Even in this COVID situation where people are debating whether he did it right or not, even within a mistake or what people will view as something that's not good or he's messing up, if the character was right, there would be a pass there, because this is something we've never experienced. But I think, like I said, I don't look at him as a politician, but I don't care if you're a politician or not, your character is valuable when it comes down to influencing people.
Yes.
And then the same thing can be said for Biden. The same thing, character. When it comes down to race relations, you look back on what has he done, in the past in race relations and how he's made these errors. One thing that brought up his character, which was good, was that he apologized. He said it was wrong. I'm not saying it excuses it, not at all, but character. I think apologies go a long way
Yes.
when you're trying
Yes.
to influence change,
Yes.
regardless of what the issue was. It's like being a bigger man. And this is my opinion. I did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016. But if that man that came in my opinion, not acting like a president, but act like Donald Trump in the sense of the deal maker, but without being abrasive as he was,
Yes.
I might have flipped my vote. And it's just character with me.
He
I
had
have
an
Kraig on the
opportunity
show.
to do
I have
that,
Kraig
and he
on the show,
chose
and me and
not.
Kraig debate online. But I like Craig's character. I respect his character, even though we think differently. And so that's one of the biggest things with our current president. And I think that he could have won with a landslide this election, but it was the character is what ruined it for him. And
I agree.
it's
I agree
sad.
with that.
But people, then on the flip side, people voted for that because they liked it. You know, there was a base that liked it.
Well, you're going from one extreme kind of to the other. You had President Obama, and notice I did say President Obama. I didn't say 45. I didn't say, because whether it's Bush, whether it's Reagan, whether it's no matter who it is, you got to respect the fact that they're in that seat. And I work in education. Yep. I get new principals all the time. You think I'm going to go tell my principal he can't run his ship the way he wants to? You know, but not only that, I do agree with you guys about the character, and I deal with students a lot. I'll have students that are incredibly bright, attitude sucks.
Yeah.
But you're not going to want to help that student, right? It's hard. It's hard to want to help that student.
The teachers that don't want to be there don't want to help them.
You still got to help them.
That's my job.
You still got to help them, but it's just harder to want to do that. With anybody.
I disagree with that, Darren. I disagree with that because I've seen it. I've seen it happen where a student had a bad attitude. That's the target for me. That's my target. Because you look at, you know, in your heart that attitude is going to ruin that student down the line. You know it's going to ruin that student. I mean, I dealt with it. I told you. I think we talked about it. I had a student steal my cell phone before. You know, right here, he stole my phone, and we caught him on camera. I brought him in, and we come to find out this young student didn't have things that he needed, and so he stole it. He didn't have clothes. He didn't have shoes. He didn't have things that he needed, so everything was stolen. So we helped this kid, you know, but we knew that current activity was going to ruin him down the line.
You got to break that pattern of behavior.
And if you see that as a teacher, you're going to be you're going to give that kid a head start coming out of that, because you're taking that, you're wrapping your arms around him and saying, I care. And you know the attitude sucks, the character sucks.
I know we're kind of going out of order here. I want to say one more thing. Anybody seen Django at the end where your boy Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, who's my boy, he said, you walk out of that door without shaking my hand, I don't care how much money you give me, you ain't getting out of here.
Right.
That's pretty much what this was. You know, I'm going to give you all of these plans. I'm going to give you every policy, everything, because it's really only for 8 years. Look at someone that's my age as opposed to someone that's their age. And that's what we don't have the ability to empathize. It's not sympathy. It's empathy. Being able to put yourselves in someone else's shoes and say, well, you know, it's only for 8 years. It's not for the rest of my life. It is just I notice I'm saying 8, I'm jumping it. And I only say that because if you follow the trends, Obama got 8, Bush got 8, Clinton got 8. Everybody seemed to get 8 except for the man that's passed the most policy in 4 years. There's policy.
Bush only got one term.
Stop the Violence Act. I don't hear people talking about that. The First Step Act of getting people out of jail. I mean, I watch students go to jail every day, every week. And in the inner city, I'm just befuddled that people don't see the on-ground effects of the policy change. You can't control the police in that officer uniform. But not only that, why are you not policing your own community? Why are you not taking your own accountability? Why aren't you being good Americans by saying, I'm going to make sure my grass is cut? I'm going to make sure my house is together. I'm going to watch my neighbor's house as opposed to going to fight my neighbor and this and that. And it's just not smart. It shows a lack of emotional intelligence. That's what it shows to me. It shows a lack of self-control, of that every problem could literally be eradicated under this president. But now you want to go backwards because there's not even anything on the table yet.
Bryan, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in my community because, like you were saying, policing themselves, neighbors watching out for each other. My community is very much like that. Like, I live on semi-country. It's like half country, half city. But like we that's one thing we really do well as a community. Like on my street, for example, we don't have to really worry about that kind of stuff because our neighbors are watching out for each other. Like, and really, that's one of the things I love the most about Anna. We're a very close-knit community, and we have a fantastic police force. And we really don't have to worry about a lot of problems at the moment. And if we keep it up, if we do things right, then we won't have to as we grow.
Bryan, we have the resources, we have the resources in every major urban community to do exactly just what you just named. The guns are out here. We know because people are getting killed. The people are out here because the gangs are out here, because the families are out here. And as we just said, we just got an amazing blueprint of the entire United States. I mean, if you like numbers and graphs, that was a field day frenzy for you. And I do. I'm a numbers guy. I don't like English. I don't like language. Long story short, the origin of the gangs were to police the community. That was the origin of gangs. Yeah. You know, even if you look in a state like California with Kamala Harris, with all the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips were put in place because of corrupt police officers. They would follow the police around and make sure, hey, make sure you write that man a ticket and you don't beat him up. You know what I mean? I'm going to watch this traffic stop. I'm not going to intervene. I'm going to sit about a quarter mile back and make sure that man or that woman makes it home to their family and there ain't going to be no trouble tonight. The police respect it. You respect it. Your family and the community respect it. But there's just too much lower vibration appetite that's being fed. And it's just a diet. It's just a steady diet of just crap. When we don't own any of the music that's telling this drill music. King Von just got killed in Atlanta last night, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. In the midst of all the vote counting and in all the midst of all this, these two cities, Philadelphia and Atlanta, have had a black man shot within a week of election in the cities where we are now questioning. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. All I'm doing is connecting the dots. And even if you look at some of the articles from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and this just came out November 7th, they've already been citing election security and advocates saying that they want to re-examine the new vote machines. And even if I go back a little further, did anybody see the court case that was filed in November of last year?
Which one?
In Philadelphia.
What was the court case?
By the Secretary of State. Everybody know about Kathy Boockvar, right? We've been reading about Kathy, right? Secretary of State for Pennsylvania. And it says that there's two different community organizations that you had that brought up the legitimacy of using these machines, okay? And she pretty much said, they're fine. Go ahead and use them anyway. It's right here. And I would even share my screen. It says, many of the concerns the petitioners raised come from the fruition when the machines were debuted in Philadelphia and Northampton in the November 5th, 2019 general election. So this was last year that they were already saying, hey, we don't like what's going on. The two groups were the National Election Defense Coalition. That's the National Election Defense Coalition and Citizens for a Better Election. We're the two petitioners here, and they're the plaintiffs in the case. Two nonprofit groups, okay? And their core mission is to include helping members of the electorate exercise their rights to vote in a free and fair election. Of course, they're nonprofits, just making sure that people are able to vote and ensure that they're conducted in systems that are secure, accessible, transparent, and audible. Long story short, and I can show you all and put this on a link. The express machines that they were using provided lack of adequate security and reliability measures to ensure the vote cast were properly recorded and counted. They do not allow for voters' choice to be kept private. They fail to offer equal access to all registered voters, particularly those with physical or cognitive disabilities, which is another thing, voter comprehension and voter literacy. They use ballot cards that do not even remotely comply with the detailed requirements specified by the General Assembly and the election code. So, and like I say, that was filed in 2019, and I don't want to go on and continue to read, but we've been seeing this pattern lead up to here, and it's leading right to these places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, if you have that link that you just read up, we can post it up in the comments here
I got it right
to
here.
this show here.
So
So
that goes back to the universal format for voting. Like everyone votes the same across the country, or do you go by these state laws where the state decide how you vote?
yeah.
Should it be more universal when it comes down to elections?
I just got done answering. I want to give someone else the chance.
So you make an excellent point. I don't. States could have done better. Anything they did wrong, but the worst you can say is they're counting slow. But this is millions of votes in some states that all need verification, and they all know they have to get it right on the first try. My suggestion to improve this process would be both parties in each state need to get together and make it easier to vote and to count the votes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
That's the thing we could probably do right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a question as Kraig was talking a bit to go back just a bit. Do we expect too much out of the government? You were talking about personal responsibility and taking care of your own, and do we, in general, do we just expect too much out of the government? We hear that a lot from conservative people that we don't, this whole socialism thing, and the critique of socialism is that we want government to be our nannies and this and that. Do we just, in general, expect too much nowadays from the government? Should we take things into our own hands?
That's kind of been the argument from day one, with our nation. Like we've been discussing this for almost 300 years now. And I think in some areas, yes, in some areas, no. It really depends on the specific issue that you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. Makes sense.
Kraig, what do you think?
Well, repeat the last part. I was too busy listening to Bryan. Repeat the last part of the question for me. Or repeat the question.
Do we in general expect too much out of the government?
Okay, yeah, I did hear that. I don't think so. I actually think it's just no fidelity. That's just what I'm going for. There's just no fidelity. We don't expect too much.
I like that. We don't hear that word enough these days.
There's not enough integrity and fidelity.
Yeah.
I mean, the system is there. We would not have been standing this long. And I'm not saying that policies shouldn't change, but you have to change them amendment by amendment also. And with people, and I have to speak mainly to my demographic because that's where I catch most of the flack from. I don't get flack from people that don't look like me. I get my flack from the people that are like, hey, you're supposed to be with us. You're supposed to be on this side. Why are you? I mean, you guys can definitely read it, fill in the blanks. But the point is just like, there's no fidelity based on us being able to trust the government to do what we know they're supposed to do. We have to know our role as 14th Amendment citizens, and that the policies under the 14th Amendment have to change. And that's where you can start to eliminate things like white privilege, because now what protection under the law are they receiving that I'm not receiving? What makes someone feel that that's something that exists? You know what I mean? So where's the policy or the wording of what we can do to change that, to make people feel like, hey, that's not really there? Just like you have black people that are like unapologetically, black. I can't get my people to understand. You got countrymen that are proud Americans. Now, you can't hold someone else accountable for fanning flames or this or that, because at the end of the day, if someone's a follower, they're just going to be a follower. Someone's listening to your channel and they're just following. They made you the leader, not them.
Yeah.
So I think the system works with a few changes, that we need to, like I say, implement policy change. It would be nice to know who's getting the envelope and who's getting that check, but I'm afraid to say that we're really far past that. We're really far past that. And before
do you believe white privilege is a thing? The two of you.
Little yes, little no. Well, it's not really a thing because Black people can do the same thing.
Okay.
We just don't.
I kind of agree with Kraig. Like, I really feel like lately it's been my turn to listen, especially as a candidate running a campaign. There's no shortage of candidates who will say they have all the answers, and they'll go on and on about how special and smart they are. But I don't want to do that. I would rather listen to what people want and then make policies based on that, instead of around telling people, making a big event out of myself, come to my meet and greet and all this stuff. It's like, no, I'd rather go to where you are. I want to go to you. I want to meet you and listen to you, because that's what it's supposed to be. We're a representative democracy. We're supposed to represent people. We're supposed to listen. We're not just supposed to go, hey, let's vote for the smartest guy who thinks he's the biggest deal. That attracts voters, and that's one way to do it. But I think I want to start that kind of change and make that example. And the best leaders in history do that. They don't use other things as a benchmark. They go with what they think. They know that their community is the best. Like our founding knew our country would be the greatest country in the world one day, but it wasn't, and it was designed to change, designed to be fluid. Nothing was meant to stay that way, set in stone forever.
Okay.
I think part of it is also we don't really. I would say it exists in this way that we don't have, and it wouldn't be white supremacy. It would just be your nationality supremacy, because China has an embassy. The Indians and Asians have an embassy. If America is not responding to the people of color to treat them as their own, as if they were somewhere in a foreign land, we do something to a Chinese prisoner of war, you better believe it's going to be some problems. They have that political and that diplomatic backing that says, same way we do. We have Americans, like you say, they go overseas and we dare them not treat them right. And it just goes back to that aspect of it. Now, when you talk about white privilege as in forms of finance and means to generate group wealth and income, no, because at that point, this is America, and it's the businesses, it's the connections, it's the relationships you build. But in a political or in a law state, yes, there is some privilege that is not granted to us. Yes. But when it comes to a group economic or financial basis, no.
Yeah. Do you think there was a question that popped up? I was going to see if I could get it up here. This was one that just came up. And I just want to see if you agree or disagree with it. Let me get it up here. There we go. It says white privilege is not driven by policy; it is driven by implicit biases, right? So, if it's when you look at whether it's employment, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the financial area, whether it's like I said with housing, doesn't it always come down to that individual's biases that impacts that situation, where it's not really about policy with the company. It's that person that destroys the policy that's been established already, or it needs to be reworded, rephrased.
The person interpreting in that document, yes.
So I saw for a fact just here, it was like two situations where money was involved from a financial institution, where an ex-football player was investing his money. It's like so many millions of dollars. And it went through the runaround. And what happened was that it was said that he was intimidating because he was big and had a deep voice. He was an African-American football player. Now, for a financial institution not to take someone's money, I don't understand that. The same institution turns around and a woman lived in the projects, was awarded $400,000 from a city. And she went to the same institution to invest her money. And it was said, well, she's not used to that kind of money. She's going to blow it in a year. And they wouldn't take her money.
Mhm.
So it wasn't the policy of the institution that was wrong. It was the people that were in charge that misinterpreted that policy. He made up a law in his own mind, which was an implicit bias that made him even say these things.
Yep.
So as we look at moving forward with policies, because we've seen this throughout our history with politics, with city government, from every branch of government you can imagine. How can we move forward in correcting this?
And this is one thing. This is a subject that's very important for Anna because the town I grew up in has a bit of a reputation, and it's very similar to that of Anna, Illinois, and any other town named Anna for that matter. But what they need, one thing that I've been trying to bring to their attention is there's varying degrees of unconscious bias, whether or not you know it. There's just varying degrees of unconscious bias. And one thing that I pointed out, the best forum I've participated in was the Black Chamber of Commerce Forum. They had everybody from the congressional representative on down, and none of the other candidates in Anna knew about it. And it really, really genuinely upset me because I was the first one to that party, and I should not have been. Because I was going against an incumbent and people who should already know about this. In the city of Allen, which is a big growing city right south of us, they're a member of the Black Chamber of Commerce, but there is not a single business in Anna that's a member, and there is not a single, there's not anybody in the city, the city itself is not a member, which if city of Allen is a member and all the other businesses, and especially right now, one of the big things they were talking about is our businesses are struggling during COVID, and who else better to learn from than literally the Chamber of Commerce that was designed to help struggling businesses. It was designed to help them get ahead because when it was founded in 1933, it was illegal in a lot of places for Black-owned businesses to join their local Chamber of Commerce. There was no networking. There was no business network that they could use. And so for any business owner who feels like the deck's stacked against them, I think it's the best place you can go. Because, of course, they had to say way too many times that it's not only for Black-owned businesses. Any business can join it. And that's why even me, I want to get it because when you join as a person, they give you a headshot, an awesome headshot. And then you go in and they teach you how to do interviews and build your resume. And that's all just for $50. You get 1 year for $50. You get to go in there and they literally they set you up for success. And they know how it is when the economic cards are stacked against you. They know how to overcome that, or at least help. And that's something that's very underutilized, especially in Anna. And they get in this bubble. That's one thing that traveling has done very well for me. I've gotten out of that bubble, and they don't see Anna's borders. And
can I piggyback on your point? I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just thought you were bringing it up. I want to piggyback on your point. People have to get more comprehensive. People only know what's in their backyard, around the corner, to the grocery store, to school, back home.
Yes, thank you.
People have to get more comprehensive. And I'm mainly speaking about my people as well, because everyone's looking at me. Well, how could you think like this? Well, how could you not see the other side? I can respect your point of view, but you can't respect mine. What it essentially boils down to.
Yeah.
Because I don't judge because I've been on the other side of just being, of being able to see those same similar qualities. But that's where we get this whole fictitious idea of racism. Racism isn't a system. It is ingrained into the bricks of America, but it's not the type of thing that should hold a person back from being successful. It's not the type of thing that should cause someone to feel like they're a second-class citizen or they're less than because of what another person thinks. Now, if you're a judge, if you're a cop, a teacher, someone that's in a power position, that's a completely different stance. But someone that's just a regular old Joe, just like me or you, that's just an opinion, just like they got an a-hole, man. And you don't allow that to grow so much to the point where, like you say, you can't even see past nothing but the hate of what you thought about this person. Give you a perfect example. Since we're talking about cities and businesses. and I like what you're saying over there, Darren. If we really, really cared about Black-owned businesses, we wouldn't have walked away from almost $1 trillion bill on the table from this president. No hate or no feeling or nothing is that strong to make me say, well, forget about just growing my businesses and forget about making sure my grandchildren are good. I want to get it out the mud. We've been trying to get it out the mud since 1865. That's an excuse. Strength should not be confused with ignorance, just like ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is actually dangerous. Ignorance is dangerous because if you don't know that people are shooting over there and you go over there, you're going to get shot.
Right.
So at the same time, there's this idea of where do we move from our reptilian brain almost to more of our humanistic part of our brain, where we're not just acting out of fight or flight, because there are 3 different levels to the brain. All right, and we're kind of a little bit more animalistic than we need to be, as opposed to being more spiritual and mental, and seeing, as we said, the bigger picture of things. There's no way that, and like I said, you can call it what you want. We're talking about reparations, and you just walked away from it in an economic form, if not still even getting additional reparations. Because they are owed to us. I'm not denying that. Yeah. There is some amends that need to be, actually a lot of amends that need to be made. But if the color schemes can't even work together, for example, even if the white people said, hey, we know these are our white supremacists, we know that these are this or that, even if they said, but they don't have trouble reacting against each other, we're the ones that have trouble reacting. We have to know our place and know our role and be able to see that as one group into being subgroups, because even if the money comes down, now we're still divided. There's 3 different levels to a revolution. You got mental, spiritual, and physical. I hate to say it, but the physical is the last one.
Okay.
Well, I agree with you.
I'd like to recognize George. He's been making some good points down here. I've been reading that. Like the last one he posted with us. Just say, we see you, George.
Yeah, I see George, but like I say, unless the host brings them into the comment, I don't get into the comment section unless the host brings it in.
Yeah. The thing about it though, when you break down, like you said, you put a bill on the table that can help a community. I agree that would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. But you got to also look at what's on there, what's in the bill, what are the things that are there that are valid. Because if you look at some of the things that he's done already were things that were also in place already. So we can go back. You can go back and forth on those things, but we got to look at the person in place that we're talking about. When you look at the platinum plan, and then you look at when we just had the stimulus bill to come through, did you know that 41,000 Black businesses went out of business? A large percentage of those didn't get anything. You look at the stimulus bill, the package that was done for the farmers when the farmers were going under. I think it was like, 1% of these farmers, Black farmers, got these. Those are building steps to say that the platinum plan would be effective. You have to show that you've already doing these things to make people want to get on board. You've had your opportunity to put these things in place already, and they weren't done, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that the platinum plan is not going to be a good thing. I'm not saying he didn't have quality things in there. But what make people get on board? Because it's not just because it was Donald Trump. That wasn't the reason. It goes also about what's all in these policies. What are you giving? What are you giving not? In the platinum plan, which would have been really awesome, was if they said, okay, we're going to just go ahead with this anti-lynching law, this immaterial law. That was something that we've been trying to get done as a Black community. It's been on the desk 200 times. It's been not passed. When something that can make a difference, because it's personal with a lot of people in the Black community to get this bill passed, that can be inserted right into the platinum plan. That would be something that would be really good. Because that platinum plan is not always about bringing money in, because you got to have it's bigger than just the money. It's policies to break down this. You were saying racism exists, but then it don't. It does exist. It's there.
Have you heard of the Stop the Violence Act of 2018?
I've not heard that one in particular.
Okay, let me tell you what that one does. It provides training for local law enforcement, school staff, students, and to prevent school violence, including after active school shooter training. We haven't seen any school shootings under this president, if I'm not mistaken, when we were seeing at least 2 a year. We may have seen one.
Seen what do you mean you haven't seen any?
I think we have, but go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I haven't looked at the last 4 years, but I'm just saying generally it has not been like the Columbines or the Sandy Hooks or anything that's been year in
Parkland?
and year out.
Parkland?
Huh?
Parkland, Florida?
And what else? I remember
The one
Parkland.
in Texas. There's another one in Texas, southern Texas near Houston.
So we've had 2 school shootings in 4 years.
It's been more than that. I don't have a list of it. It's been more than that across the country.
Okay. Well,
So it's been several, but go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to correct that because there has been more than.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, like I say, there's acts that are being passed that people are not even looking at. Even the Tim Scott bill that was shut down by the House. There's different things that. Okay, but as I said, we've had more bills come through this administration than that have come through a few other that have been, as I said, a little bit less than favorable to get passed. You know what I mean?
George makes the point, and I agree with this completely. He never made a speech to sell this $1 trillion bill. He doesn't make speeches to sell these policies that would do good, that benefit people, that people would support. Instead, he dwells on other things. That's just fact.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of it is also, like you say, once you go back and we realize now we're doing this in real time, there was a lot of things that during other presidencies that were being said that we just don't know about now that we're actually looking back and say, oh, I didn't get it then. And being honest, that's human nature. The first time you watch a movie, you're not going to see everything that's in that movie. The more and more you watch it and your attention goes up, your attention to detail, you're going to get more and more out of it. Just like being in the classroom. You may get a C the first time, but you take that class.
We need to be diligent and we need to pay attention to what's going on and what's being proposed. I agree with that. It's just that it's not dwelled on. It's not dwelled on. And partly that's the media, partly that's the administration, I think. We're getting up on our time to go here. So we need to.
And I'd like to point out, I'm doing a little fact checking. I'm up to 97. I'm up to 97 school shootings since 2016. Okay. 98, 9, 100, and that's up to September of 2019. There's 101, just up to September of 2019. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, and it goes on for quite a while. So over 100, definitely, and still, and the most recent one being September 16, 2020 in Macomb, Illinois.
Okay.
Oh, school shootings?
So, over about 150 is what it looks like since 2016.
Wow. Why aren't they being reported?
That's one problem. Yeah, because we don't see it. Yeah, we
150?
You can look it up. Actually, I just had to fact check.
We ain't even been in school really this year.
Yeah, literally the most recent one was in September.
I mean, I believe it. I did an internet search on Wikipedia. It did not have 150, so I believe it. I mean, this stuff just not get showed. We get shoved under the rug.
I mean, I think my opinion on this right now is that you haven't seen much about the shootings as much as you probably have in the past because of the Second Amendment issue that's going back and forth. There are, conservatives, the Republicans want to keep Second Amendment rights as they are. Well, the thing about it is now there's a lot of Democrats that want to keep the Second Amendment rights as they are. See, there's this thing now because the narrative was that Democrats wanted to do away with, a lot of the rights of the Second Amendment. Well, that's not the case. They want to keep a lot of these things. I think that people are looking at more of the control of regulations. Like, for instance, you're saying school shootings. Mm-hmm. I want to see policy in place that will strictly penalize a parent that is irresponsible with their firearms. Irresponsible.
Yes, strict punishment.
Minor to get to the gun. That doesn't mean take away your gun. That don't mean stop being able to buy, an AR-15. I'm not saying you have to stop doing these things. What I'm saying is be responsible.
You sound like me, LaMarr.
Yeah.
I want to see strong law and order.
No,
You should be able to accept those consequences.
I'm passionate. I'm passionate because I voted Democrat and I am a pro Second Amendment person.
Right.
And so I don't like I said, the labels, the narrative that's built sometimes. So I think that you don't see a lot about gun controversy as much as you have in the past because more Democrats are speaking up, saying, I support. No, don't take my ability to protect my family away.
Yeah, it's all about freedoms and face the consequences for abusing those freedoms. There have to be.
Thank you. Face the consequences for abusing the freedoms. Yes, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, there should be consequences. I mean, that's for everything. But as he said, we're running against the clock. Before we leave,
thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, you.
Thank you for having us.
Very good.
Before you thank him, hold on. We got to do this. We do it every week. Bryan first, in 15 seconds. Post-election, as we coming into the post of the election and everything we talked about today, can you give me 15 seconds, your bottom line about post-elections?
Maybe 30.
Basically, a difference of opinion is not a difference of principle, and we need to focus on what is the most important in our lives, paying our bills, taking care of our families.
Great. Kraig?
Self-preservation is the number one principle, and make sure that you build your relationships. Make sure that that you just strive to continue to be more different than anybody you know. It's okay. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be yourself.
Okay.
Darren, what's your bottom line for today, man?
Bottom line is that democracy works and the system prevailed, and the United States will continue, and we're not going to dissolve into some sort of civil war like a lot of people were predicting. So, amen for that. Yeah,
my bottom line is, as I always say, grow your peer circle, meet more people, meet new people. Get your mind out of the box. Step out of the box so you can learn and also be able to understand and empathize with other people and their situations. And I think that'll make a better America, in my opinion. So I want to thank our guest, Bryan Heath. Good luck.
It was very good. Very good.
Kraig?
Thank you very much. Early voting begins November 23rd. Election day is December 8th.
And Kraig, thank you for being on the show, man.
Not a problem. Thank you all for having me. It was great.
Good luck in the upcoming during the school year and going into next year. Dealing with COVID as a teacher, and we want to thank you all. Darren, any final words?
Just blessings to everyone, and one thing that we didn't talk about, didn't really cover it as much, is here in Ohio and the record-setting numbers of COVID cases, which is kind of depressing because it kind of puts a wet blanket on the holidays that are coming up, because new cases now are going to result in more people being sick in a week and 2 weeks into next month. And so be careful, y'all. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your neighbors. Love your neighbors.
That was one of the bottom line.
What's that?
He said that was more than
another discussion there. No, I'm joking with you.
Okay, you guys take care, and catch you guys next time.
All right, y'all be safe, man. Great talking to you guys, man.
You too.
Soon. All right.
Okay, Darren, man, we just finished up. What was this? Is this our eighth episode?
I think it's at least our eighth.
Eighth?
It's been at least 2 months. It's at least I think you're right. I think it's our eighth episode. Yeah.
I'm happy to work with you, man.
Thank you for your support, everyone out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this video. Thank you for watching and tuning in later. Continue to watch us in the next couple of weeks ahead. What do we got next week, Mars? What are we doing?
I don't know, man. I got to come back on that one. We have been talking about a couple of things. You had a list for me, but yeah, I don't have my list in front of me. But by Monday, we'll have some postings up about it.
Okay. If there's anyone out there that has ideas, anyone that wants to be that has things to say that they want to talk about, if you want to be a guest on the show, let us know. We've taken people.
Yeah. Email us at thebottomlineshow2020@gmail.com. That's thebottomlineshow2020@gmail.com, and we would like to hear your topics that you want to talk about. And with that, man, I'm out.
All right.
I gotta go see the grandbabies, man. I'm in Kansas City. Gotta go see the grandbabies.
Yeah, you enjoy. You enjoy.
Take
Peace,
care,
brother.
man.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.